common knowledge there is regarding jazz has mostly to do with its vacillation, its modular growth and development through improvised notes. Indeed, improvisation is the staple of any great jazz recording, and moreover is something to be respected in any art form because it denotes the human capability to triumph in the face of formlessness, to achieve a sort of nirvana without the need for prior rules or demarcations. This is how I believe the human brain works. The decisions we make are not based on the luck of the draw, but a split-second toiling of the synapses to produce a decision that flowers into an action. We do not deliberate much when it comes to those simple species of thought that govern most of the actions we commit to in our daily lives. Indeed, we just do it. In a way, we are improvising, striding through life minute to minute, pursuing one action after another with an almost sublime fluidity that, just as with improvisation and jazz, will every once in a while be flawed, but at the same time will bring us great opportunities and life experiences, more importantly. And all these everlasting processes of life move soundlessly and automatically within the intricate conurbations of one's head. Decision after decision is made in our daily lives, seemingly without much deliberation. It is instinctual, visceral, just as Coltrane's music was instinctual, visceral. However, this is not to say that we do not think before we act. In point of fact, this is all we are doing all day long. And what makes such a thing sublime is that every task, whether it be piddling or momentous, provokes the same endlessly complicated toil in our brains, just in different areas, depending on the task. The thing is, if one were to elaborate upon and build up a certain set of principles / factors, when it came to such easy cognitive behaviors as making coffee in the morning, it would take hours for us to come to any sort of conclusion at all, instead choosing to dwell eternally on how best to grind the beans. It is power, that power of improvisation in the mind that keeps us moving, acting, thinking, because one's mind to them cogitates in a rather simple manner. Everyone has this view of their mind, must have this view in order to get through mundane trivialities, sending a letter, making breakfast, engaging in small talk. The loose weave of our lives in reality is not so loose, not so simple. It is that same improvisation that brings form to the void and elucidates the idea within the barriers of one's own intelligence without a need at all for previous reasoning. In other words, we come to immediate conclusions and weave them seamlessly, seemingly thoughtlessly into the bits of our day until by the time we go to bed, there's another film of comprehension over the mind, a newer and freer clarity to the world. We're always learning, whether in school or not. Our own personal progress seems intangible, almost non-existent. It is the speed of the mind that makes all this seem simple, and such an accelerated process deceives us into thinking we haven't changed at all, because the transition from one level of understanding to another is near seamless, just as the transition from tenor to piano. Like jazz, the unforgiving speed of one's mind, speed of the mind's ability to make connections out of ambivalence, to utilize and compress those fathoms of understanding into a simple shake of the hand, are incomprehensibly fluid, easy. Meanwhile, I save all those beautiful, complex thoughts for a time when I am unsatisfied with the quotidian and must turn my ideas inward, upon themselves, and outward, to the limits of a limitless universe. So, this idea of complexity being a matter of volume rather than substance. you know? See, the thing is, we need to think that thinking is easy in order to think. The people who think that thinking is hard are stupid or retarded or something. Moreover, if we were to realize how much goes into each thought we have and still have that perspective of that thought as being something simple, what then? Because those are two conflicting views of the same thing, you know? I mean, I guess what I mean is, once you observe, I don't think that's possible, because once you observe something, there's this idea in psychology that once you observe something, the observation in itself becomes a change, because there's an added layer to it. You know? I look at the mind as being something like an endless series of steps. You know? Like there's always something we're unconsciously, there's always some unconscious reasoning that if it were to go a few steps above would be conscious, and then somehow would lose its fluidity. I mean, I don't know. Just my opinion. My stupid opinion. Shit. I need to stop being so goddamn self-deprecating, because some of these are interesting ideas to me, and I guess it's that I just think that because they're interesting to me, they're not going to be interesting to anybody else. And I don't know why I think that. That's kind of skewed logic. But, nonetheless, I'll read one more thing, just because it relates to this. It's called, given the odd title, Less Than Lip. I lord myself over the instinct, and suddenly it is no longer reflexive. And I penetrate the cursory pretense of action to find that no action can be without first following a brigade of prerequisites. My thought used to billow freely while still hustling my consciousness, like a sleeping gravity suspended us in competence. However, the sky collapsed, and air became form that fell, a lapse in the magic, a freak disturbance of an absent purpose. And afterwards, no, speaking spoke to inner mind, words, thrown tennis ball against brick wall, back again. Instinct becomes ambivalence, not working properly, too choosy, and it chooses often foolishly, perhaps halfway wrong, and quarter ways right, and 3 ways neither, awed by the provocative of some other importance, moving me the way I had wished. But it is the other that moves, that levitating spirit of blood, risen to a scarlet curious than more than my endeavors ever could. The bodiless become the body furious, after which I am forgotten. To fix this, I seek and castigate a lesser soul, in the hopes I belittle that scrap into less than lip. Whatever is below me squirms under my heat, rather like an ant. Then it is brought down, down in a hole to nestle its humiliation within shunt of dominance, and I bathe in the falls of my redemption. The water soothes the skin. I see myself, miles away, somewhere peaceful, somewhere dark and peaceful, left to let my head bloom into service. And here's the argument. I closely examine my instinctual nature, and it becomes no longer instinctual. I realize that every action under the guise of something that arrives and departs with nominal simplicity has deceived me. Each movement, physical and otherwise, each thought, no matter how simple, is nonetheless the result of a fusion of smaller and vague actions and reactions, leading within the divide of a millisecond to profounder shadows, eking through small cracks in the mind more clearly, but at a darker stage, a stage of crucial shadowiness. I used to possess consciousness that, though acute, did not prevent me from living my life. I could realize certain intimate natures of myself and remain disaffected. Not a part of the thinking, though indeed I thought it. And it was almost as though a sleeping gravity or an almost premeditated control kept me from fully dismantling the structure of thought to meaningless, minuscule particulars. That is, until unknowingly I became snared in a kind of mental apocalypse. In uncovering the absence of purpose and of meaning to be found in the gestures of this trackless reality, this communication between the brain and what it sees, in uncovering some such absence, I found myself no longer able to speak within my mind. Zero anterior monologue, just a bunch of space, as though my mind at a principle did not wish to think if any result from it indicated something born out of senselessness. I still needed to think, but the manner of thought was repetitious, like a rubber ball thrown and over again, thrown against a wall. This instinct once noticed, therefore, gives me the freedom to defer from it. In this freedom, I know also that any product of instinct is done the right way. So then the freedom I had was merely to follow other false paths. Instinct becomes hit or miss, basically. Still, however, there is something I cannot repress, something that remains unconscious no matter what I do. But it is expressed in another, a ghost who lives a level up from me, taking the place I once had, that balanced area between the dull brain and the sharp brain. This ghost lives my passions for me and my hindrances and gains. Soon, I fear I will be forgotten completely. This ghost, this vacant version of what once was me, becomes less and less vacant as my will to go on becomes something less and less urgent. I cannot defeat the ghost above me. He is better than I am, more fluid and stronger. So then I look down into the great vacuity and find a weaker soul below me and steal his own instinct from myself. Just as the great ghost above had probably done to me, he too becomes a shell, just as I had been. All he does must now be filtered through me. In turn, I appraise what I am given and suck the energy out of it, before the choice in question is left to create unfortunate scenarios that would, if the weaker specimen continued to perpetuate bloom throughout different parts of the existence of the weaker specimen, into confusing though ultimately primal maladjustments of both mind and body. However, the weaker specimen, the lesser soul, does not continue and remains wholly static. I am redeemed by him and can go on living. However, I am still sucking the marrow from an insufficient bone. Just as the stronger ghost, the soul above me, will be plagued by my own insufficiency. Still, I wait for my head to again bloom into service, so that that very ghost above, who robbed me of my own instinct, will no longer receive fodder for the survival of his own psyche. I will have defeated him by feeding on the weaker specimen, deriving a weaker consciousness that nonetheless can exist, confident that the nullity and inaction I was subject to for so long would not return. Um, so, you know, there it is.